We are down here at Crown Theatre right now. We're very excited because Jesus Christ Superstar is in town and we are talking to, that's right, Jesus himself, Mr. Rob Tripolino. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Did I get the name right that time?
Look, it was better.
Tripolino.
With the arms.
Got to put the music in it, you know? Now, look, you're playing Jesus.
Yes.
No pressure, obviously.
None at all, I don't think.
How did you prepare for this role? You know, what's it like stepping into the shoes or the sandals of Jesus?
I think after probably an hour of crying in the bottom of the shower, eating Oreos, then I got myself together and I started going, okay, you need to sing now, and I started singing. No, in all seriousness, when I first auditioned for this show, it was back in 2018 in London, and I went through a whole series of auditions, which was firstly to audition for the role of Peter, to understudy Jesus. So I thought, that's okay, this is a nice song actually, I really like this song. And they're like, we need you to sing this song, and it was a 6-minute number, and at the time I was like, that's a long number. And it's like, yeah, it's in the middle of Act 2. And I was like, oh, that's late in the game. And they're like, and it's Jesus' big number. And I was like, oh, but I'm going for Peter. And they're like, no, we're actually looking at you now for Jesus. And I was like, this is a game changer. And I ended up auditioning about 14 times. I think I sang that big song, which is called Gethsemane.
Yes.
And it's one of the iconic songs in the show where Jesus is on his own and he's, screaming, and it's all rock and it's all belt and it's all everything and high octane energy. Yeah. So preparing for that was really just practice. I got myself into a studio and basically just sang my little butt off until it got into my body, and now I get to do it again kind of 6 years later, which is awesome.
How good. And so every single night you have to do this show. How do you bring energy, enthusiasm to the high points, but then also these intense emotional moments? How do you channel that?
Yeah, and that's the thing, especially with the role of Jesus, is it is a as we were saying, a high octane rock show, but there is also really poignant moments that are quite soft and still. And it's actually finding the gracefulness in those moments that really let the payoff of the high, when we're screaming, when we're when we're arguing in high vocal range that feels impossible to do 8 times a week, but we will do it. So I think it's just the practice of getting the dynamic is what's most special about winning this show, and especially musically too. The band dynamic is huge. We have guitars, we also have wind, we have trumpet, we have a drum through the whole thing. So I think riding the wave of the dynamics is what really gets the highs and lows, and helps me anyway to kind of achieve that every night.
Totally. And the show first debuted in Australia in the 70s.
I know.
So it's
well before my time.
It means that so many people know it. It's such a favourite.
Yeah.
Do you feel pressure in trying to bring something unique or fresh, or are you just happy just to take on the role and be yourself?
I used to. I think I started that with oh, this is pressure. But then I actually went, no, this is ancestry. I was I am just getting handed the conch from people prior to me, Trevor White, John Farnham, and as soon as you think that it's people are actually just handing this over now and you get to put your staple on it, it actually makes it feel very unique and very special. And this particular production, which is so reimagined and has been award-winningly received in London and now here as well, it's very much we get to put our staple on it, just like people are putting their directorial staple on it. And musically, the arrangements are slightly different, the direction is different. I play a guitar, did Jesus do that?
Jesus
Who knows?
loved the guitar,
That he did.
You just shred.
But it
anyway,
is,
here's Wonderwall.
It's Wonderwall. Well, it is. It's such a nod to the genres. It's such a nod to the 70s when it first came out. There's moments where I feel like James Taylor, and there's moments where I feel like Robert Plant in Led Zeppelin. I think it's the priests in this show, the ones who kind of don't like the Romans and the priests. They're giving an Elton John energy. Everyone has got their own genre in this show, which I think Perth audiences are going to love.
Yeah, and you all look like Yeezy.
Yeah, I know.
That's the coolest. All the costumes are so cool.
Absolutely.
And comfortable?
It's really comfy. I feel like I've rolled out of bed into nice clothes and then to get into trackies again. It's really, but this is the design of Tom Scott, who is incredible, and he's done the set as well, the wonderful set we're standing on. And I think that's the part of the show that was so important, is we're feeling elemental in this. It's not about kind of wearing. There are moments, of course, where there are nods to the narrative, and I wear sandals at one point, but then there are also nods where I'm in Connie's right now. It's that's why, because we're getting the show's element out, which is the music at the forefront.
Brilliant. And so before the show, any rituals, traditions? How do you get into, you get here and what's the process?
Yeah, I think especially from a vocal point of view, I need to make sure that like my voice is obeying. Yes. Look, I don't take away that I love a coffee. I know that people say it dehydrates you. Obviously the Perth weather is beautiful, but it is hot. Yes. So I have to drink a lot of water. I have to make sure I'm drinking so much water, staying hydrated. Look, this role for the ensemble, for all the other actors in this show, for the band, it's Olympic. Like what we're doing is Olympic, and you have to treat it like that. You have to treat yourself like an athlete. And with that, I make sure I swim every morning. That's such a routine for me here. I make sure I do a little bit of a vocal warm-up before I come into work. And then also part of it too is the camaraderie, to make sure I see everyone and say hello to everyone. Yeah. I think it's really important, especially in this role, when I'm on my own steam train. So once I start, I'm kind of gone. So, and everyone's around us and we're all a team still, but it's good to check in. And I find, being in Australia, the camaraderie I've noticed is just so beautiful. In London, it's so wonderful till, I think it's the weather, to be honest. Yeah. Everyone, yeah, exactly. And it just changes the game. So that's a big part of it too, making sure I check in with everyone too. It kind of, makes it less about me. Like we're talking about pressure. If I can get it off me and onto someone else, then I think that's the best way to deliver this show.
Beautiful. And what would you hope audiences would take away from the show?
Oh, I think knowing that this show will forever run. I think knowing that, and I think there'll be nostalgia. I think there'll be certain members of the audience that will have nostalgia, but I also hope that this show will bring in younger audiences to show that this show is in definitive. Is that a word?
Yeah, it's like a legacy.
And the fact that fact check me on that. But the fact that this show can actually keep going. There's never been the definitive production. It's always
undefinable.
Undefinable. Thank you very much. We'll just cut everything.
Teamwork
my talk here is undefinable. I am so sorry. But I think that's what's so special about it, is the demographic will play to the nostalgia of the people that love the John Farnham version, the original Brown album, but also, me doing this and having Mahalia Barnes doing it, all of our cast, Ruben Kay coming in with his energy, it's just we're bringing in also a younger kind of energy as well that I think people will lean into as well. It won't feel like it's been written in the 70s, it'll just feel like it's timeless. And I think that's what's so special about this.
So good. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, Rob. Cannot wait to see this show. Head to our website, sunshine.com.au for all the details on this one.
For the undefinable experience.
You play Judas in the show. I'm wondering, what is it like? I know.
Oh, bad guy. Ooh.
What is it like to play such an iconic role and the villain as well?
Yeah, it's definitely a bucket list thing for me. I've never been a villain in a musical before, so there's a bit of pressure on that aspect because, as the bad guy, people have that expectation of you being the bad guy. Yeah. I don't treat him as the bad guy in this sense. I think he's just trying to do what he thinks is best for his friend Jesus, and I lead him with love, always. So he ultimately, in history, is the bad guy, but I don't look at him that way.
No bad guy thinks they're the bad guy.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? From their point of view.
The bad guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So is there a moment in the show that a moment or a song that really gets you? Every night you sing it and you go, oof, there it is.
My death scene, spoiler, sorry everyone, I die, is the one that I kind of have to emotionally kind of get there, because he hangs himself. Right. So to kind of go on that journey of he's filled with so much regret for portraying his friend, that he's I did the wrong thing, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to talk to him and try to have a conversation with him, and it just all went left. And now I can't live with the kind of repercussions that I did and what I caused, essentially. And he ultimately has to hang himself. Yes. Which is usually not the way to go about things, I don't think. But in this situation, it is what we do. And it's hard. It's hard every day to kind of hang yourself on stage in front of thousands of people. So that's the one that kind of gets me the most every day. Yeah.
Understandably.
And Javon, you have performed on stages all over the world. I'm curious to know what the Australian audience is like compared to other crowds.
We were actually just talking about this. Australians are very nice in the theater. Okay. So I'm obviously from America, if you can't hear the accent, but we're very rowdy people when we come see. Everything is Super Bowl Sunday when we come see a musical. We're just loud individuals. And Australians are really, really nice. So it's hard to gauge whether or not they're liking it or not. But then at the end of the show, everyone kind of shoots out of their seats and they're like, okay, so you did like it, which is great. Especially in a show like this, it's a rock musical. I can kind of see people kind of bopping around with us, but for the most part, I'm it's okay to move around a bit, smile a little bit, you know? Although there is a lot happening in this show. show, and it is a bit moving here and there. So I get it, but yeah, they're a bit nicer.
Ah, look,
Which is nice.
we try until you're in traffic, and then you'll learn, especially here in Perth. So the show, as you said, it's rock and roll. Have you had to prepare for this role in a different way compared to other musicals you've been in?
A little bit. This is definitely the biggest thing I've ever had to do in a musical. But I did Rent a couple times back in the States, and that's also kind of pop rocky, not as rocky as this one. So I kind of tapped into that kind of world of like, it's a musical, but it's a rock musical, kind of like getting that grit into it. And a lot of what is written, what Lloyd Webber wrote for Judas in particular, is kind of it. The music helps me a lot. So there's not much that I kind of have to do. I just kind of put my own little flair here and there, but they really kind of did all the work for me. So I kind of just sing what's on the page, do a little riffy riff here and there.
A little trill here.
A little something here and there, and then, you know, call it a day. But yeah, the work is really done for me. Yeah, Tim Rice and Lloyd Webber, they really did it.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They've done
I think so.
Yeah. We'll see.
Jury's still out.
Oh no, it was incredible. But I imagine like most of the magic happens on stage, right, with the cast. But I'm wondering if there's any behind the scenes, like favourite memory or moment, maybe at rehearsals or backstage that you can share?
Backstage in this show is a lot of fun, just because like it's heavy content on the stage. So we try to make backstage as light as possible without getting in trouble, because we do talk a lot backstage, so we do get in trouble with it because they're kind of like, you have to be quiet. There are moments that I have with pretty much everyone in the ensemble where we just kind of look at each other and we're just like, hey, or we giggle, things like that. Ruben K, he loves to make us laugh backstage. So, because he sits for most of Act 1 and then he does his makeup and then like comes on for Act 2. So in Act 2, once his makeup is all done, he'll be in the wing during serious moments of the show trying to make us laugh and giggle. And it's just, I mean, it happens in every single show. You guys wouldn't know that on stage because we try to keep a straight face.
Very composed.
Very, very composed, but he's acting like a menace in the wing. And it really does help and get us through the show when you have such heavy content on a day-to-day basis.
And what can Perth expect coming into, you know, Jesus Christ Superstar? Maybe they've never seen it, they've never heard about it. What can they expect?
Well, if you haven't heard it this for 50 years, that's a bit shocking. But if you haven't, expect just a lot of fun. Some moments of like thought and clarity on whether you are religious or not. You come into the show and you're going to see some things that will make you think, whatever that is. You kind of take that journey on your own. But ultimately, the music is so much fun, and it's going to be loud. It's going to be really infectious music and like some really good storytelling. From Jesus and myself and the ensemble, they're dancing their faces off. Like, it's just amazing. So like, you're in for a good night at the theater with some good rock music if you like rock music, or even if you don't, like, it's just a really good time.
So good. Javon, thank you so much for joining us, and all the best for all the performances.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.